I think the Nikki Haley campaign is starting to feel themselves. This morning, they received the best poll numbers they've had post-debate. Nikki Haley was the only candidate who hypothetically is beating President Joe Biden outside of the margin of error. So no other candidate, not Trump, not Governor Ron DeSantis, is posting the sort of numbers that she is right now.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by national political correspondent Mabinty Quarshie. Mabinty, former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley. A lot of people thought she had a good night at the first debate. We're starting to see some polling that suggests that might be true.
Yeah, I think the Nikki Haley campaign is starting to feel themselves. This morning, they received the best poll numbers they've had post-debate. Nikki Haley was the only candidate who hypothetically is beating President Joe Biden outside of the margin of error. So no other candidate, not Trump, not Governor Ron DeSantis, is posting the sort of numbers that she is right now. Her campaign is going into the second debate probably with arrows targeting her back.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that is the only risk, that once you have a big debate breakout moment, then that kind of makes the other candidates start to target you a little bit. Now, former Vice President Mike Pence, he has a very different target in terms of who he's focusing on in his campaign. Talk a little bit about this interesting strategy he has where he's distancing himself from former President Trump on yet another broader issue.
Yeah. Former Vice President Mike Pence was a very loyal VP to Trump, but it seems that the more that he runs for president, the more he's willing and more comfortable to be direct and breaking from Trump. So he gave a major address in New Hampshire about populism versus conservatism, where he basically laid down the mantle for the Republican Party. Is it going to be a party who is formed in the wake of former President Ronald Reagan, or is it going to be a party that embraces Donald Trump's populism? And for former Vice President Mike Pence, he is not for the populism. He wants the GOP to get back to Reaganism, limited government, traditional social values. And so that's what he's asking of his party. But, I mean, the Republican base is very loyal to Trump, so I'm not sure how persuasive that speech is going to be.
Right, it's interesting because Pence served as vice president in a fairly populist administration. Maybe he was ambassador to the more traditional Reaganite wing of the party during his 4 years there. But now he is really running for president, trying to lead the Republican Party back to its pre-Trump roots.
I think he's walking a tightrope that's very hard because, again, he was Trump's VP for 4 years. So for 4 years, he was embracing what Trump was embracing.
Right.
And now he's trying to walk this tightrope of saying we need to get back to Reaganism. But how do you do that when you were supporting former President Donald Trump? And to be fair, I think the entire field who's not Trump is having to deal with a GOP that really did support Trump and now might be wanting to break away from Trump, but it's hard to do when, you know, strategists can pull up comments from a year ago or 2 years ago or 4 years ago. Right. So I think Mike Pence is really trying to be more forceful because he's the only candidate who's Trump's VP. I know Nikki Haley was a UN ambassador, but she wasn't his running mate. So she has a little bit more distance and can be more forceful without seeming hypocritical in the ways that Pence might not be able to do. But I do think that we're going to continue to see him really make sure he emphasizes a difference between Trump and him. And I think that was what the major address was attempting to do, is for Mike Pence to be like, I'm a traditional conservative. I was before 2016 and I still am in 2023 and moving on to 2024.
So one candidate who hasn't really had any problem sort of hitting directly at Trump is former New Jersey Governor Christie. But Christie has also had some choice words for another political faction.
Yeah. Christie is not a fan of the No Labels group. He basically called them, a fool's errand, and basically said that they didn't know who they were going to hurt if they tried to run a third-party candidate. And I do think that Christie, with his choice words, is just echoing something that the Democratic Party is also feeling, in that if No Labels does find a third-party candidate to run, it's probably going to hurt President Biden more than it hurts President Trump, to be honest.
Right. I mean, a lot of the Democrats are worried that some of these centrist and suburbanite voters who, are not big fans of Trump, but not really partisan Democrats, they could end up voting for a no labels candidate.
Exactly. And again, the entire GOP field that's not Trump, they're not really running against Trump, they're running to be the anti-Trump right now. So a no labels candidate just muddies the water in a way that they really don't need at this point.
So Trump is the label and the no labels.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mabinty.
Thanks, Jim.
You can read Mabinty and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.